Where's Catherine? Where's Catherine?
Hello, hello, hello. I'd like to call the meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines to order. Welcome to the first meeting of April of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm President-elect Matt Musick, standing in for Catherine Staub. Hope that's okay for everyone. We're so happy to have you here today and are looking forward to a great program from the Des Moines Public Library. Today's moment of inspiration will be delivered by Heather Stuyvesant. Following Heather's moment of inspiration, she'll lead us in reciting the pledge and our four-way test. Please take them, and then after that, of course, we're going to greet your neighbors. So, Heather, take it away.
Hello, everybody. So today, on this cold day, this cold spring day, as I was walking outside, I started noticing all of the bulbs that are starting to poke through the earth, and gives me a sense of hope. And it got me to thinking a little bit about how every moment in life is a seed. And every single moment, like I said, is a seed, and every single present moment is a seed. So something to consider, right? That the seed of the present. And when you really think about every seed that you sow in your life, really think about it. You know, every thought, every word, every interaction, everything that you do, everything that you decide, the decisions that you make, how you speak to people, how you think of people, these are all seeds. Every single one of those things is a seed. And you're dropping those off into the universe. So think about what kinds of seeds you're planting. Are they seeds that are going to grow into a beautiful orchard of fruit trees, or is it thorny bramble that's kind of tangled up and hard to get through? So I want you just to consider about the seeds that you're sowing, that every single moment is a seed. And if we could really understand that as a species, just imagine what kind of a world that we could create. So again, the future is a seed that lies in the present. What seeds are you sowing today? And with that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the four-way test.
Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And now you can greet your neighbor.
Hey, who's nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you, Heather, for a very nice moment of inspiration, and I'm inspired by how much conversation is taking place. It's clear that we need to be back together. Alex Grasso, are you in residence today? One of our newest members. Well, it's Alex's birthday today, so if anybody knows Alex, he's one of our newest members, an attorney at Hopkins and Huebner, and was sponsored by Abai, Nadi Purim. So if you see him today, make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Today's single guest of our club is Dr. Isabel. If you could stand just so that everybody knows who you are. Isabel is a guest of the club and serves as the president of the Des Moines Libraries Foundation, our board of directors, board of trustees. So April will be a busy month for the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We have 2 community service opportunities, and so we're going to invite Jason Stuyvesant, where the Stuyvesants are making a big impression on the club today, to talk about a couple of things coming up. Jason will be followed by Jim Slife, who will have a quick announcement as well, and then Sue Whitty will join us to introduce the program. All right.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, guys. I have to admit I'm far less inspirational than my wife, so I will just get to the info. No, so we, like Matt said, we have a few opportunities for community service after a couple of years of not necessarily being all that comfortable in getting together to do things. Getting together and doing things for the community is why I joined the club in the first place. So excited to be able to, in the second half of my year as community service chair, have a few projects happening. The first thing that I have to bring up is our Civitas event. I guess not technically a community service project, but a community service project in the sense it's a multi-club event that I've been working on the committee with, I believe it's 6 or 7 other clubs. Will be taking place on Tuesday, April 26th. It's from 4 to 7 p.m. It'll be at the Hilton Garden Inn out in West Des Moines. I believe we have sign-up sheets on the tables. It's $20 to attend. The presentation this year is going to be on human trafficking. We have a whole panel of speakers that will be addressing that issue from a few different angles, everywhere from the state to individual nonprofits. And then we'll also have nonprofits in the back of the room for you to meet and discuss some of the work they're doing. Would really like to see a great turnout. The only other one I was able to work on we did virtually, so it'll be good to get together on that. And then Jim's going to allude to another one of our community service projects, but then also just in advance of our presentation on April 30th, we will be supporting the library on their Dia del Nino event. I'll let Ashley kind of go a little bit more into that, but it's a Saturday, just a couple hours, and I know we volunteered at it last year and had a great turnout and really helped them. So if we could get anywhere from 10 to 15 people, that would be really great for us as well. So I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the past few years, our club has participated in the Earth Day cleanup sponsored by the city of Des Moines. Our club has typically been assigned to clean up Waterworks Park, and it's normally been in the third week of April in connection with Earth Day. Last couple years, the event was canceled because of COVID, so we didn't do anything. But this year, they're going to have it again, and they've assigned our club Ewing Park, which is on the southeast side off Indianola Road, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock on Wednesday, April 20th. Typically, it's been a couple hours. Usually, we've been able to clean up. We're looking to have somewhere 10 to 15 volunteers to help out. Family members are welcome to sign up also and participate. We've had some family members help out in previous years. There are blue sign-up sheets on the tables, or you can email Kitty if you're interested in signing up. This year, the city did a good thing. They now have a link where we can sign up online, so if you will put down your name and email address, I'll make sure I email you that link and you can just sign up right online. So hopefully we can get good participation and the weather will be good, and we'll help clean up Ewing Park. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm very inspired by Heather's words of inspiration. And if we think of the seeds that we plant or the things that we do and see how they grow, then I would like to introduce our next speaker as the gardener. So Ashley Molson will be speaking with us. She is the community engagement officer at the library. She's been with the library about 15 years. And let me just tell you about a couple of the seeds that she has planted. We met back in the day when we were both working at the Forest Avenue Library, and I saw Ashley work with teenagers, and she had a program called Know How to Go. and that meant know how to go to college. These were kids who did not know how to navigate that path at all, and they did indeed go to college. I also watched her navigate English language learners and volunteers in a program called Conversations and Coffee. And I would watch these people come out of this every Tuesday noon session. And I cannot tell you who had more fun or who got more out of it, the volunteers or the English language learners. As she progressed through the library, she went to the East Side Library, where she managed that library for a few years and brought a whole new realm of Latinx community into that library that had not experienced the library before, maybe did not know all of the services that we provide. So she's been planting seeds throughout our community for years. And one of the most important seeds that she's been planting now is she's our community engagement manager. And what that means is she works with other nonprofits, other city groups, other businesses, and even other libraries to work together to serve our community. And she's not been able to do that as well as she has been for the last year until we got the Rotary Rosie Reader Van. And that engagement and our outreach efforts have just blossomed and just taken off. So you're not here to listen to me, but I would like to thank you, President-elect Matt, as well as Isabel, for coming, our Board of Trustees President. So thank you both for allowing us this opportunity to say thank you for something that's been very important to the library. And I will let Ashley tell you all about it.
Well, thank you for welcoming me. For those of you who have already told me I'll do fine, I appreciate those words. I'm nervous, only because we really appreciate the funding that you all have provided to the library, and I hope that after the presentation you are as proud of what we've done with it as we are. And just anecdotally too, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, at the Forest Library, I tried to unofficially change my title to Special Populations Librarian and was told that was not possible because I wanted to be able to focus on groups who were not engaged with the library the way they could be. And so I'm proud to say that, 10 plus years later, not only did I change my title, but we created a department, so. Just patience, right? All right, so thank you very much. I am open to questions during the presentation, but I also understand that typically those come at the end, so either is good for me. And then Kitty's gonna help with slides, but I think I've got the green light going. All right, well, Ganesh specifically asked that I include what was our outreach van. So it's not a great picture, but that's okay, because this is the before times. So about 10 years ago, we lost our dedicated outreach position, and that position went out to early childhood education sites, preschools. It was a focus on early and pre-literacy sites. It was a minivan, and then through budget cuts through the city, we did lose the position. We kept the van, and so by the end of it, you kind of had to have a jump of the battery, sprinkle a little fairy dust on there to get it going, and then we might be able to take the van out. So I think Kitty's going to queue up a video of what we were able to do with the funds that you guys provided so that we could buy not just a van, but this is a 10-foot cargo van. It's tall enough that a staff member can stand up inside, which is important because sometimes we go out to an event and there's not a changing space for our mascot. So this really did happen. So the mascot used to be as big as the inside of the back of that minivan, and a staff member would have to kind of like do a worm shimmy into the costume if there wasn't a space provided. So with the new van, we can use it in multiple ways. There is sound up?
Yeah, but I'm having this. Oh, hold on.
So we were pretty strategic in how we chose this van too, and I can kind of talk through a little bit of that. Or you want to do the
Yeah,
video
because
first?
your mic will go off when
Okay.
this starts. So, okay, I'm gonna try.
Every audience at the library would have services for, which is really everybody. When we go to early childhood sites, we might do a story time, we might do some songs, some stories, some movement, and we might bring them deposit books too. And these are kids that are never going to be able to make it to the library. And it's a way for us to bring books, literacy to them. What we want to do is we want kids to be excited about reading and picking up a book, and then the skills that they learn through reading will be applied to other classes.
Is my mic back? Yeah. Okay. So that was very short, but a couple of things I want to highlight about features of the van. So in addition to being tall enough that a staff member can walk inside, there's a hydraulic lift in the back. And that's really important because books are so heavy, and we have one person doing this job, and it's a very high energy position already. So if she's worn out just by loading the van and unloading it physically, she won't have that energy to put into her classroom visits. So everything that this van is capable of doing can be operated by one person, which is important to us knowing how limited our resources are with staffing. The other thing is there's only one set of fixed shelving in the van. The rest of the floor is flat so we can roll things in and out. And that was important because we didn't want to have a really specific design inside the van because library services evolve over the years and we wanted the van's outreach to be able to do that too. So the elements that come in and out of the van are stored at the library, and so it's as customizable as the library services in our 6 brick and mortar locations. Okay, so I want to show a quick demographic of Des Moines Public Schools. Some of you may already be familiar with this, but I think it's important to note that we primarily do go out to Des Moines Public Schools with this outreach van. So this is really just the racial breakdown of the school, but you can see this is a 20-year difference. So the bars on the left side, far left is DMPS 20 years ago. It's really comparable to the state of Iowa about today, 20 years later. And so you can see the third bar in from the left is the demographics of schools today. So when we talk about our outreach visits, we want to know who our audience is. And I also like to think of this as library users about 20 years from now. So if they don't see themselves in the books and the services that we're providing now, they'll never think of us as a resource when they have their own families or their own educational needs down the road. So it's really important to us that we know who we're working with so that we appeal to them and they will think of us as a lifelong resource for learning. So here's a list of the schools that we're currently in. The van took a very long time to get up and going. It took a long time to find the van with Amazon buying all the vans out there. Then we had to do the decals. The lift was also on back order because other people had lifts. So by the time we got the van up and going and it was outfitted and ready to use, we also hired a full-time outreach position to support the use of this van. And this all came about in January, and second semester started January 20th. So I said, let's reach out to all of the schools because a lot of them probably won't get back to us. There's teaching shortages and everyone is stressed with the pandemic. But you know what, they got back to us. So we're very active and busy. So you can see we primarily go to second grade classrooms, and we did that because there's a push in third grade to hit reading proficiency marks. So we wanted to have our impact before they got to third grade, where the schools and the teachers were going to be putting that focus on reading proficiency. And then we also do early literacy pre-K, preschool sites. And again, that's just kind of the library's bread and butter is that early literacy. We have our Simple Steps Early Literacy Initiative. And I'll get into what we do at each classroom visit or each age group in the next couple slides. But we're also at after-school programs, which are, of course, for K through 5th grade students. This one position reaches over 1,300 kids each month. So we're very much out and in the classrooms. And then how we chose these schools, they have since changed, but the Des Moines Public Schools were using, they called them MAP, Measure of Academic Performance Scores. So we went through, because those are public, and we identified the elementary schools that had around a 50% or more at-risk reading population, or reading proficiency scores in the school. So we really wanted to work with the schools that had the most numbers of kids who are at risk of not reading or meeting those reading benchmarks. And so that was how we chose those schools. We also took into account how far away they were from each of our locations, knowing that if you're geographically further from the library, you're less likely to go and visit the library. It wasn't the only criteria, because of course some of these schools are pretty close to us, but we factored in both. All right, so what do we do when we're out there in the Rosie van? These are photos from early education programs, and we have 3 priorities really. So what we want to do is we want to create this positive association between learning, books, and the library so that kids are excited and they want to pick up those books and read. We also want to bridge the connection between when we send a physical person out to the school who they don't know, who is not in a library setting, to how that drives families to use the library outside of school as well. And then we want to encourage kids to, like I said, get back into the library and get to know their librarians too, so that this becomes a very personalized experience for them. So we focus on our early literacy steps are read, write, sing, play, and talk. And so that's what we focus on in each of those classrooms. So you can see, you know, Big Rosie is there and they're reading a book together. They're doing some action and movement associated with the book, and then they've got their dance scarves out too. Our second grade classrooms can choose between large group, like the whole class, or they can do more targeted small groups. And we offer that because we see, and research has shown, that small groups are more effective when it comes to making leaps and bounds with reading proficiency. So you'll notice that Maddie's here, and she's the one who was in the video with me, and she's got the yellow sweater. But I hope you'll also notice that Rosie is in every one of these photos because Rosie goes to every classroom. And Rosie is a large mascot. Rosie is also a plushie that's more easy to travel with. Rosie's on the van, Rosie's on our promotional materials, and we do that strategically. And that was Sue's invention, actually, because when Sue did this position, you know, as the Rosie reader, the kids thought she was Rosie. And again, we're trying to make that connection between the books, the program, and the library. So if they associate Maddie as their person, they're going to be disappointed when they don't see her at the libraries. But since Rosie is everywhere, she's at every visit, so that when they go to the library, they see Rosie. When the van pulls up, they see her. In fact, Maddie said when she got to Molson one day, she was surrounded by 40 kids all chanting, Rosie, Rosie, Rosie. And that's what we want. We do not want them to chant Maddie because she's one person and we're an institution, an organization. But Rosie can be that you know, image, that physical presence that they can equate the library to. So at the start of each visit, Rosie has something in her pocket that is a clue to what they will talk about that day. So for example, one day Rosie had a phone in her pocket. It's a big no-no in a classroom. But of course, you know, that ties into why would Rosie have this phone? Well, you can read books on your phone. And the library has ebooks. And so, you know, she uses that to talk about it. And so Maddie had come back and said that one of the second grade teachers was so excited she had no idea we had Libby, and read 3 books over spring break and has not stopped reading since. So this is even good for the teachers themselves because as they're reading and the kids see their teachers reading, their role models reading, it's easier to, you know, have that enthusiasm kind of spread. She also talks to them, you know, the first visit, and if you don't mind, I'd have you all participate in this exercise. Remember that we're in classrooms where there are reluctant readers, English learning, you know, different levels of English learning and experience with public libraries and books. So it's important that we don't go in with the assumption that every kid is there and eager to read. That's not the case. So if you'll close your eyes real quick for me. And now imagine that I put a book in your hands. And just sit with that book for a minute and your feelings of that book. All right, everybody open your eyes. You don't have to say it, but were some of you feeling excited? Were some of you really disappointed I put a book in your hand? Were some of you nervous I was going to ask you to read that book? And so we acknowledge the feelings they currently have with the books, and then we let them know explicitly the reason we come to visit you is so that you're excited. So when you see us walk through with a basket of books, you want to know what's inside. You want to pick up that book and share that story and your experience. So that's kind of the starting place, and at the first visit with second grade classrooms, every child goes home with a library learning bag. And inside the library learning bag in both English and Spanish is a letter to caregivers that explains our visits and why we go. There's a library card application, again in both languages, a comic book sheet, a pencil, and a Rosie sticker. But we want the caregivers to see why we're there and how, again, your child is experiencing this in the classroom, but there's a larger library world that you can experience together as a family too. So that's our second grade. Oh, so at Jackson Elementary, for example, on the first visit, Maddie asked, how many kids have been to the library before? And she said 1 or 2 kids raised their hand. And after spring break, she asked the same question, and she said in one classroom, half of the kids had then been to the library. And this was important because it was after spring break, so we had a lot of fun things out too. And in another classroom, it was about 1/3. So we're trying to get that to translate into families taking advantage of some of the library services as well. After school programs, based on what Maddie's told me, this is the trickier one. We've got a lot of kids of a lot of different ages here. So we've got K through 5th grade, and everything we do with the after-school programs ties into literacy, but because they're different ages and interests, we spread it out and we do different stations. So you can see in the photo here, again, Rosie's at the after-school program. There's a drawing of Rosie that looks a bit like a germ. And then the students who are in the second photo there have something we call strawbees. And those are just STEM building materials, but last year some of our adult programmers created a program that maybe some of you are familiar with. It was a mural tour, so it featured murals throughout Des Moines. It encouraged people to go and see the mural, and then they hosted a virtual program where you could hear more from some of the artists who created the murals. Well, Maddie took some of those and brought it to the after-school program, and the challenge they were working on was, can you recreate a mural in Des Moines using strawbees? And then the third one, you can see they're coloring Rosie, they're creating bookmarks, and then the fourth student, if you're not familiar, Dogman is a book character, very popular book character. So, and a graphic novel, and we have found too, graphic novels are very popular. They're great for reluctant readers, they're very visual, so if you're not proficient with English or reading, those are great books to get you into it too. Okay, I think I have to speed up a little bit. I'm sorry, I could talk about this all day. Okay, so in the video, it kind of mentioned our deposit collections. Deposit collections are books that we check out to an organization, and then they stay at that organization's site. So every classroom that we're in, including after school programs, get these deposit collections. And these are so important too because some schools have really great libraries and they have a staffed library and others don't. You know, I mean, the reality is there's staffing shortages and resource shortages in Des Moines schools too. So when we can bring in these books that kids are excited about, that goes a long way as far as building that enthusiasm and love of reading. And so you can see the kids on the left here are an after-school program. And Maddie did tell me one time there was an older girl, probably 5th grade, who was really reluctant to do any of the activities. It was just not going to be her thing. And Maddie always asked the kids, what are you into reading? She wants to be responsive to what they like. And the girl had said, scary books. I just really like scary books. And so Maddie brought some back the next time. And I guess the girl just hugged the book the whole time, went off to the side and just read the entire time that they were at Metro Kids. So, you know, for some kids it is gravitating toward books. Others are gonna say, wow, these strawbees are really great, but as long as they're learning and they realize that those resources are available at the library, that's really what we're trying to do with our visits. And then on the right, I gotta point out, because you probably can't see it, those are Woodlawn students, and they found Rosie, like a little icon of Rosie on their reading bin. And so they were so excited that they found Rosie that they were pointing at her. But again, that's where we connect Rosie to the books, to the service, to the library, and that's our point. When they come into the library, that's who they're looking for. Well, I think you should all be very interested in this. You gave us a great donation, monetary donation, so we could purchase books. And we chose 8 organizations, and they're listed up there. I'm happy to talk more about them, but I think for time's sake, I'll just let you look at the organizations. These were organizations that we either had a relationship with or we were trying to reestablish because the pandemic wreaked havoc on our relationships as well. Everybody kind of, you know, focused in on survival mode. So as you can see, you know, Embark, Hope Ministries, Knock and Drop, Monsoon, New Horizons, NISA, Universal Cuts, and Wilkie House, some of these organizations are really working with and serving families who are in very transitional phases of life. So, you know, for us it may feel like, well, the library's free, go grab a book, it's, you know, it's no issue now, there's no fines on children and teen. But to ask people to come into a place they may not be familiar with, to remember to bring things back, it can be a bit much when you're just focused on trying to get your feet under you. So for us to have this ability to reach out to organizations and say, we don't want anything from you, we are not, there's no expectation that you bring tour groups in or anything like that. We just want to make sure that the people you're working with have access to great books. And we solicited feedback from every organization before we purchased the books so that we could be responsive to languages that they wanted to see. Representation of the characters and the storylines, who was writing the books. So you can see here in the pictures, we're at Universal Cuts. So in the barber shop, there are free books that people can either read while they're waiting for haircuts or they can take home. And they also have a free library outside, so it was a great choice for us because they were already kind of doing that and we could just lend some more support. And then down in the bottom, that's us at Knock and Drop, which is a food pantry serving Latinx community. And so we had a focus on bilingual books, Spanish books, and then we brought some of our Simple Steps Early Literacy Initiative materials as well. I'll have to show you some of the things we get back. So one is a thank you note from an early literacy site, just thanking them for coming to the classroom to do a visit. And then the other, and I know it's too small to see, but this is, as I was told, a very reluctant to participate child, 2nd grader. and did not want to get into the books, kind of a naysayer about anything Rosie had to say, anything Maddie had to say, until it came time they all create their mini books. And man, did he love it. He did his entire book proudly. And it's about picture day and a baby who says to the mom, do I look bad in this picture? Oh no, you look so good. So Maddie is then going to follow up with this, and she made photocopies of the book that they'll share out to the whole class, and then this child will be able to read their book to the class. And again, she's just really responsive to where kids are and how do you pull that out of them, because we know there's a book for every kid, and we know that there's a learning opportunity for every kid, but how do we connect them? So that's just an example of a kid who was, I'm not into your Rosie visits, to, actually, yes, I'm an author, and I'll share that book with my class. Oh gosh, okay, I'm gonna go faster. So we have a summer reading program, and this is, kind of tried and tested. Libraries do this all the time. Reading incentive, you get a prize for reading time. Over the years, we've honed ours into literacy-based learning activities as well as reading, because we do know that not every kid is that's not gonna appeal to every kid, is to track their reading time. Last year, we partnered with By Degrees and Spark Foundation, and we did early access for the students in Des Moines schools who are already being served by those foundations. And early access is important for us because when you sign up for the all summer long reading program with us, you get a free book. And we know that when you have personal libraries and access to books in the home, that is an indicator of educational success later in life. So we want to get those books into kids' homes. Then if they complete the program, there's a chance to win another prize or you get a trinket. But really, we want those books going out right away. So we were in the schools in May so that we didn't expect the kids to have to get into the library to get that free book and information, but they were going home with it. Last year, we served just under 1,000 doing it that way, and this coming summer, we'll reach 2,500 kids doing it that way. And that will be all of Rosie's second grade classrooms, and then the sixth graders at Goodrell, Harding, and Hyatt, again, based on reading proficiency scores. And then we'll continue to support the By Degrees and the Spark students. And then also part of the grant that you guys awarded us was to get some traveling Chromebooks. And so I just wanted to show you too how we've used some of the Chromebooks so far. These have been used internally, but Franklin and Central Libraries are both hosting computer basic classes for recently arrived African refugees. So we're focusing on Zoom and then Google Maps, because when they arrived and they're in their English classes, those are on Zoom. So if they're not familiar with how to use Zoom and tap into that, it's really hard for them to participate in English class. So we're hosting those with Catholic Charities, and then we also do the Google Maps, so they are having an easier time navigating the community. Northside also hosted a typing club for adults so that they could enhance their typing skills, which of course helps with every aspect of work nowadays. And South hosted digital literacy escape rooms as part of a grant that they were awarded so that they could, it was to do with digital literacy and information seeking, but they needed the Chromebooks so that they could have teen participants and adults participate. So we've made good use of the Chromebooks as well, and they can certainly travel off-site, but that's how we've been using them internally. Okay, I'm sorry that I didn't leave a ton of time for questions, but are we good? Okay. Yes, Jason.
I have one not so much as a question, but that I forgot to mention. We need a Rosie for the event, correct? If you want to elaborate on that.
Since I have a little bit of time, and it's been alluded to, the Dia del Nino program was not featured in this presentation because it's not really part of the Rosie outreach. It comes out of our youth services and our Servicios, our New Americans teams. But Dia del Nino is going to be on Union Park. If you're not familiar, it's Day of the Child. It's celebrated kind of throughout the world, but in Mexico it's celebrated on April 30th, so that's when we kind of do our date on that one as well. It's a celebration of children, of reading, and of access to books that represent who the child is. So that's going to be 10 to 12 at Union Park, and we have a lot of community partners, so we'll have resource tables. Each resource table that's there is going to have a fun interactive activity for kids, but they'll also allow families to sign up for resources that their organization offers. And then we'll have STEM and literacy stations set up throughout the park. There will be free carousel rides. We're going to have a performance from Los Jóvenes Embajadores, which are little folkloric dancers. And then we'll also have a local artist there who's going to do a community art project. She was one of the muralists as well. So you could be Rosie. You can also come to the event and just kind of provide some oversight on those those literacy and STEM stations. They're very easy, don't require instructions or anything like that, but we just want to make sure that everything looks nice for families as they arrive too. So a lot of opportunities, Adia, if you'd like to get involved. Claudia.
Yes, hi Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
No.
Do you have a microphone?
No, some of you.
No, but I've been told to
Okay,
repeat
perfect.
your question.
I will try to be as loud as I can. First of all, thank you for your presentation. I have two nephews, 11 and 8 years old, that are avid readers. In fact, my 11-year-old nephew, up until about a year ago, would be very adamant that we had to wear gloves to pick up his books.
Yes, that's a future librarian, an archivist.
Yes, because he was so enamored with his books and so careful, and they continue to read. So on that note, one, how do you encourage, do you have programs at the local libraries that can encourage the students, avid readers, to go on the path of exploring writing as a career path? That's a very selfish question. And then my very quick second question here is, when you go back to the classrooms and select the books, who is around the table giving input on the selection of those books? Do students have a voice in that process? Thank you again.
Okay, so tell me if I didn't repeat these correctly, but the first question is, you've got a nephew who's 11, who's into writing and is one of those avid readers. So how does the library support an avid youth reader? And to that, so we have the 6 locations, and each of those locations has at least one dedicated youth service programmer. And it's hard to say because each location does their own programs, but yes, we do host, like for example, there's an epic graphic novel club. So kids could come together if they like graphic novels just to discuss that type of book. There's also a young writers workshop. I'm not sure if it's down to 11-year-olds, but kind of those middle grades or tweens to do writing. So yes, there are book clubs, and then there are writing programs, but it's based on the branch. So if you go on and use our filters on our events page, that's the easiest way to do it. And then the second question is, when we go back out to the classrooms and we're bringing the books, who's helping guide the choices of those books? Is that right? And do the students themselves have input? And I'm really glad that you asked because that's so important to us. So of course we do consider ourselves book experts as librarians. We do professional development and ongoing so that we're aware of new books coming out. So we have an expertise, but the students themselves drive what goes into the collection. And that's why Maddie asked them, what do you like to read? And sometimes, because when we are working with reluctant readers, they don't know. Sometimes what we'll ask instead of, what was the last movie you really loved? Or what do you like to learn about? Because there is a book for all of that. But if you say to some kids, what do you like to read? And they don't consider themselves readers, they may come back and say, I don't know. Or I don't read, So we drive at what they're interested in if they're not able to articulate what they like. But that was that girl who had said, I love scary books. So coming back then with books that are scary meant the world to her, and that's why she hugged them. It meant something to her that she was heard, and that Maddie was responsive. So it's a lot of note taking on Maddie's end. What are you interested in? And I see her notes on, down in her office area too, so that when she goes back out, she can bring those books. But she does work with the youth librarians at each of our locations too. And so if there's a language group, for example, Carver, 2nd grade, had a couple of students who spoke Swahili as their first language. And we happen to have a staff member who also speaks Swahili. So Maddie brought him along to the classroom too so that he could read a book in Swahili with the kids, but also answer questions. And really more importantly, probably than any of that, is that they see somebody who looks and sounds like them and their family members, who loves books, who loves reading, and who is there, helping make that access point for them. Does that answer your question? We've done the same with other staff members too. So for example, a classroom that had a lot of Spanish-speaking students, we would invite somebody who was a bilingual and bicultural staff member, so those students can hear from somebody who, again, looks like them, sounds like them, and is as excited about books as we want them to be. Yes?
Do the schools get back to you to say our reading proficiency has gone up because of Rosie being there and the good works that you do, and thank you for your enthusiasm?
The question was, do the schools get back to us with, I guess, results? We are able, as an official community partner to DMPS, to request aggregate data from classrooms. We probably won't do that this year. You know, we only got into the classrooms January, and for some of those, even a little bit later. But what we would like to do is send out a survey towards the end of the school year with very short questions, so we'll get responses. But essentially what we want to get at is, were the kids more excited, enthusiastic about reading, and did they gravitate toward reading more in this classroom after our visits? And then did you learn more about resources that are offered at the library and how you can tap into them as an educator who you know, has big impact on these students? So we'll get some information, but we won't get data probably this year. We have access to that, and I prefer to do that next year when we're there longer. Is this it?
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Isabel. It's terrific to hear how impactful our grant has been. The mission that you have underway at the library is in sync with what Rotary does. It's one of our touch points, literacy and education. So very thankful for you and for all you're doing. Okay, now we're moving on. I'd like to take a look at, one of the things that we do need to mention is that every week we donate, in honor of our speaker, a book to the Des Moines Public Library. So that will be happening in your honor. So thank you for your presentation today. Next up will be our upcoming meetings. Next week we have Leisha DeSmet, who is currently President and CEO of the Greater Des Moines, or YMCA of Greater Des Moines. On the 21st, we have our local scholarship awards, and on the 28th, Educator of the Year awards. So there's a theme here, everyone. April is the theme of giving to our community through community service. A couple of great projects in front of us. I hope you get involved. And your donations to the Rotary Club of Des Moines Foundation are critically important. It allows us to do the kinds of things that we've done with the library. And as you know, local scholarships are a function of our foundation as our Educator of the Year awards. So hopefully the theme is coming through. We matter. We matter, and what I'd like you to do is think about someone you know who might enjoy seeing the energy, the way in which our club is having an impact on Des Moines through the balance of this programming in April, and bring a guest. Growing our club, making our club vital, growing the vitality of our club is up to us. And so I really encourage you to think intentionally about someone who might be interested in the programming that we have coming up, and bring them as a guest. Now remember, Kitty would like to know that you're bringing a guest by Wednesday at 9, the day before our meeting. So that's it. Thank you, and we are adjourned.